Thank you very much. Thank you very much. People from Bazonia, once again, I bring a salute on this very 11th day of December 2023. I'm very, very excited because of what has just taken place, making the biggest of histories in Ambazonia. And I want to report to you that I am in the house with a seasoned Ambazonian, and this Ambazonian, whom I call seasoned Ambazonian, will be talking to us and sharing some insights with us more than we expected. So before we go, I would like us to again just welcome him. And when he is welcome, he will be sharing with us some insights. And before those insights, let's get to this bit of music and then make sure that he talks to us. Brother, you said father loves Ambazonia and he knows the name of Ambazonia. Could you please just come in and tell us in 1 minute what you are saying? All right, over to you, sir.
I give you glory. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. You know my name more than the air. You know me, you know my name. I can see your hand in my life. Lord, I see your love upon me. Every time I look around, now you are the see. Every time I turn around, now you are the view. I dey hear your voice in my heart. Lord, I feel your love over me. Every time I look around, now you are the see. Every time I turn around, now you are the below. Abba Father, you know my name.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The Father knows your name, and we are here today with Barrister Timothy, who is a seasoned Ambazonia with the knowledge of where we are coming from. Our history is what we must continue to tell in every area and in every opportunity that we have, even if it's going to be repetitive. Today, we have just crossed the line of a very important event that has marked the history of Ambazonia again. And that event that has marked the history of Ambazonia, which I do not know whether time will permit us to get into it. If time does, we will definitely get into it. But then, Barrister, we are here to start from the beginning of the southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, that dates back to the 54s. But then I would like you to cut in where you want us to join up very fast with what happened on the 7th of December 2023 as touching this government. So I want to throw the ball into your court to use the timeline that you have, because from what I'm seeing here, there is a book out there I've tried to ask the technicians to see if they can put it out there to us to see. Southern Cameroon's former United Nations Trust Territory, a vision of tomorrow and beyond. And the cover is very, very wonderful, very powerful. I just believe that before we end up with this program of today, our technicians will be able to put up that particular cover for us. But for now, sir, just go ahead, introduce yourself, and then come back in and tell us. I know everybody knows you in Ambazonia right now, and those who have been watching the ABC TV, they already know you. But in the history of Ambazonia, we still expect that you introduce yourself a little bit to the people of Ambazonia. The microphone is yours, sir.
Again, thank you very much, Pastor Commando. Once more, we're here to revisit the history of the past and to possibly plan for the future. And I think I know a bit, a lot of it, probably not all, but I know a lot of it, which I think might help us in this government and even those who don't belong to it. So they might know the direction from where we are coming and the direction to which we are going. It is important to understand this history so that you can better put things in perspective. Thank you once more. I hope everybody knows me. If not everybody knows me, I'm called Barrister Mbisa, a lawyer by training, a teacher by upbringing. So thank you once more. I'm here for you.
Okay, you have two portfolios, a teacher by training and a lawyer by profession. That's wonderful. I'm a teacher by upbringing. I don't know what that actually means, but it's very interesting to know that there is somebody who is a teacher by upbringing and a lawyer by profession. And of course, when we talk of history, we are not only talking about those people like we saw with this man who calls himself Lawyer Kamto, who came and is trying to distort our history, thinking that we are still Mughals, you know. But then we have people that God has placed in Ambazonia who are teachers by upbringing and lawyers by profession. And of course, they have the in depth of our history. So, barrister, without any further ado, I do not know, but I would have loved that you give us a brief of how we existed before 1961. How we existed before 1961, beginning from 1953. It's a story that a number of Ambazonians don't yet know very deeply because the confusion, especially those who are born in slavery on the other side of the Mongo, because if you were born after 1968, even though it started in 1960, but if you were born after 1968, I want to let you know that you were born into slavery and you were born into prison because the Republic from that time had started wiping out everything you have to know about your history to the point that you have some adults of 35 years old. When you ask them the Independence Day of La République du Cameroon, they will tell you it's 20th May. But then they will say that is the Independence Day between which Cameroon had, including Ambazonia, to be the day of independence. But then we want you to separate this by telling us how we came out from Nigeria and other things like that. The microphone is yours for that brief history before we go ahead.
Thank you once more. Maybe because there's something you did not understand, I'm sure many others did not understand. Let me explain that. When I say I'm a teacher by upbringing and a lawyer by training, this is what it means. I was a teacher in 1964-65. I just left primary
Oh,
school.
wow.
I thought as a PT teacher, that's people teacher. And then we
Mm-hmm.
were the first batch of teachers to be trained under the frontier government. They set up teacher training
Wow.
to train teachers for primary schools. At the time, at the pinnacle was a grade two teacher. They wanted to have grade two teachers in their mass. And they set over the call 5-year continuous training. I was in the second batch, 1966, 1967
Wow.
to 1972. So I was a teacher. That training ended abruptly because of the events of 1972. West Cameroon government ceased to exist. And we graduated as teachers trained for West Cameroon primary schools, and we had nowhere to go. We were thrown out into this ocean. That was me, a teacher. And because I'm thrown out in the ocean among with all my friends, I found myself teaching in all different types of schools in the Republic of Cameroon. I taught in CS Yagua, taught in
Wow.
CBA one day, the bilingual. And my last appointment as a teacher was in Gulumakon near Ebolova, 1980.
Where?
In Gulumakon in Ebolova.
Oh, okay.
So that was my last appointment as a teacher. That's a teacher by upbringing. I was a certified
Oh,
teacher.
wow.
But while I was doing all this, I was also in the university in the 78 to 82. I was doing law and graduated with a law degree in 1982 and found myself where we are. So I transitioned from a teacher who had nowhere to go upon graduation because of unable to come, to a lawyer who had to set up office in Boya once more. That's the meaning of a teacher by upbringing,
It is
a
by
lawyer by
upbringing.
training. That's what
Wow.
it is. Because we're the victims of the very system that we're complaining about. And
Mm-hmm.
again, fast forward. You see, when this thing, after upon graduating from university, many of us, including myself, who have taken this course into our hands privately before we ever started talking about idea of a government. And so after the Communication 266 was published in 2009,
What does that
a
mean?
few of us, now lawyers and interested historians, came together to pull out what we call the timeline, which I've
Okay.
shown this is the timeline here, to ambassador
Yeah.
history. It was put out in 2011. I was a
Okay.
contributor. Professor Anyangwe was a contributor. He wrote the forward to this timeline. And people like Fonkem Chanken, who was in the triumvirate government of Republic of Ambazonian upon the adoption of Sisiku 9 in 2018. So we put out this thing, not knowing that the revolution will come to this
Show
stage.
just
And
show
so
show us the book. Show us the book
this is a
because
book here. I
we
don't know where it's in the market.
all right. The
So,
timeline. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I was a
Our
contributor
technicians are
to
not there to
this.
put it all for us, but
Well,
leaving that before
I
we
send you
finish,
the
we'll come in.
cover page. I send you the cover
Yes, yes,
page,
yes. I
whatever
got
thing
it.
you did. So that was it. So when you send me the topic for today's discussion, I thought it would be good for us to have it, to see the
Yeah.
timeline that you want us to talk about, because it's officially documented in this book in page
Wow.
47 through page 50. It ends in page 50, the timeline.
Yeah.
But that's not what you want us to deal with. You want us to deal with our time because it starts from 1885 and goes down to 1922, 1946. 1946 was when the trust agreement was signed, and Southern Cameroon was part of that trust agreement. That's when we became a UN trust territory. But we know that from that angle, we were given to the UK to administer. Under that agreement, any administrator working for the UA who was entrusted territory was allowed to administer that territory along with its adjoining territories if there was anyone. That is how the UK, that was entrusted the duty to give us the training, attached us to Nigeria and administered us from there. And so that is how 1946 is important. Then fast forward, we were part, therefore, British Southern Cameroon was part of, administratively, part of Nigeria. Southern Cameroon, which the UK divided us and called Southern and Northern Cameroon, was administered politically from Enugu. And so once in Enugu, we were there for a few years. But we were never, there was an assembly, a House of Assembly in Enugu. We were never part of it until 1951. That's when they organized elections in the British Southern Cameroon to send delegates to the Enugu House of Assembly, 1951. And fast forward, you probably know that those delegates that went there included people like Indele, they included Foncha, maybe Muna, and other people, the names that we're already familiar with. That's how they found themselves in Nigeria. That's how they found themselves in Enugu, forced by the administrators to become administratively part of Nigeria. But again, as they moved on, from the 50s, Nigeria was already fighting for independence. They were forming political parties. And there was, like in the other country, they have this struggle inside Nigeria, who to prevail. Was it the Nordics, the Northerners, the Hausas, the Fulanis? Is it the Igbos? Is it the Yorubas? They had this infighting. And the political parties they formed there reflected this. One of those parties that was formed that affected us was the NCNC, which stood for Nigeria and Cameroon. Nigeria and Cameroon, though we were so tiny in Nigeria, they did not forget that there was a component called Cameroon. So they formed a political party called NCNC, Nigeria and Cameroon National Congress, of which we were part of it. Then they were discussing this issue of independence, what to do to get independence from Nigeria. The tiny Cameroon, I think that was represented in that Enugu House by only 13 people, was even up to 13 people. They said, no, we can no longer be part of it. We are not part of Nigeria to discuss your internal politics. And that's how they come with this idea of benevolent neutrality that you hear. They decided to be neutral in the Nigerian politics. And because they were neutral, they were not participating in Enugu. The few were gone to Lagos as the capital, including perhaps Estimona and Chimokete, who said we're not part of this Nigerian politics. So the politicians who were there just by 13, 14 decided to declare neutrality, which they call it benevolent neutrality. And in application to that benevolent neutrality, in 1953, they said, okay, we are done with this. We are pulling out of the house in Enugu because we are not part of Nigeria to discuss your political evolution. So the 13 of them effectively in 1953 pulled out of the House of Assembly of Representatives in Enugu. That is the significance of 1953, if we want not to start from there. That was the beginning of Southern Cameroon asserting herself as an entirely different entity from Nigeria, an entirely independent entity from any other country in Africa. They identified themselves and they pulled out of Enugu in 1953. That was, to say the least, an embarrassment to the UK, the administrator. UK was still, the Governor General was still in Lagos, appointed from England. And so this political embarrassment to the administrators, UK, because they were acting as trustees to the UN by administering us, they had to do something. Now these people have said they are not part of it. The Northern Cameroon was not there. They were being administered from the north. They were administered as a province in the northern Nigeria. And they were not as educated as we were. Remember in 1953, 1951, we already had doctors. Indele was a medical doctor. The
Wow.
Chemoketes have done university degrees. The Munas had gone and trained somewhere in England as certified teachers to have grade 1 certificates. So what educated people? Politically, the Funchals had gone to St. Charles and graduated as grade 2 teachers. The Jews. So that was a grade 2 teacher then was a very big person educationally. So what a core of educated people who had the knowledge of what to do. What schools? By then they had set up SASE in 1948. It was a secondary school.
Mm.
The whole northern Cameroon, that later joined Nigeria, had nothing. They only had 4 primary schools.
Wow.
So these intellectuals from southern Cameroon set the pace in 1953 by withdrawing themselves from the parliament in Enugu and saying, okay, we want to establish for ourselves our own state. We want to establish for ourselves our identity so that we can be administered as envisaged in the 1946 agreement. So we can get our own independence when the time comes. And so the British were surprised. Take note, this is 1953. So they went back
Mm-hmm.
to Boya. They went back to Boya and had the opportunity to put the picture of the house in which they sat, which became the first house of assembly of this British Southern Cameroon. I put it out there. I'm sure you have it there. It has been shown on our website for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there.
So
We have the house. Yeah.
yeah. So when they withdrew from there in 1954, the British started setting up Southern Cameroon institutions. Because when they withdrew from Enugu, they only had leaders, and they were just leaders. They didn't have functions. So in 1954, the British said, okay, get your own leadership. That's when they chose, I don't want to call it election, they chose Ndele as the premier of that group. That's how Ndele formed the first government in 1954, going down the road. It was not an election. Now, the British just said, okay,
Mm.
constitute yourself into some functional thing and form a government. And then that's how Ndele became the premier in 1954. And of course, we all know what happened with it. Again,
Okay.
there was no election in 1954, but the first election organized was 2 years after 1956. Why did it take this long time? It took this long time because government institutions had to be set up between 1953 and
19.
1956. So there was no election until 1956 or 57. So that would tarry with what we are doing right now. You see, our constitution, what we call the interim constitution of the government of Amba, says that we will get to Boya. There's this transition of 2 to 3 years for us to set up the institutions of a functional government. That is exactly what happened between 1953 and 1956. One
Okay,
of the
barrister,
functions,
stop there.
okay,
Barrister, just let me just stop you there. This is very
okay.
interesting, very interesting, because it appears this government went to the school where you are talking all these things, how it came across with Endele and so on and so forth. Now, one of the things I interrupted you to find out from you. Now, when they left the Enugu and Nigeria and came back and constituted their government, what was the attitude of the British into whose hands they were given to be a trust territory? What was the attitude of British to our government at that time?
In my earlier statement right here before you, I said it was an embarrassment to the UK
Okay,
administrators
all right,
because they
good.
had never contemplated these people leaving Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
made the sign of the cross and the northern Cameroon had not joined us. The British wanted us to remain permanently in Nigeria and become part of Nigeria. That is
Mm-hmm.
a different story. We have told the story of the plebiscite in northern Cameroon in 1959. We don't want to get independent by just joining Nigeria. But I was trying to say that when they came and started setting up these institutions in 1954, 56, One of the institutions they needed to put in place, if they wanted to have a functional state, was the
Mm-hmm.
judiciary. How are you going to get your own magistrates? How are they going to have their own
Mm-hmm.
lawyers? And
Mm-hmm.
so they had to put those things in place. Everything they proposed had to go back to British to put it into law in the British Parliament. And so in 1955, they produced the first legal document that guided them on how to appoint magistrates, how you will get your own magistrates, how your own courts will function, what type of courts you were going to get. And that's how in 1955 they passed the law, which is still, most of it is still, some of it is still applicable today. It is called the 1955 Southern Cameroon High Court Law. Any
Wow.
lawyer who practices in Anglophone Cameroon will have that book because it's still cited. It was
Wow.
called the Southern Cameroon
Southern
1955,
Cameroon's 35
1955 High Court Law.
uh,
It
High Court
guided
law.
people, it guided the government
Yeah.
on how to get magistrates. It guided the government on how to set up courts. It guided the government on
Wow.
how to apply, to sanction, or to promote all those people in the judiciary. So that is one of
Wow.
the acts that was put in. All these things were put
Okay.
in preparation for a functional government. And that's why after
Okay.
having put in this just one example, in 1956, say, okay, after these basic structures are there, let us go on now to elect somebody. Let us go on now to elect the government. There were many parties. There were many political parties there. There was the KNDP, there was the CPNC, there was the KPP. Different villages have different
Wow.
parties. They had different parties.
Mm-hmm.
Funchal had a different party. So there were many political parties. They say, okay, with all these political parties, let us now go for elections. We'll put off the place. We'll have a census. We'll know who will vote and who will not vote. We'll know where they will vote and where they will not vote. That's how they came in 1956. They say, okay, let us make elections now. That was 3 years after 1954.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense? In our interim constitution,
Does.
3 years upon arriving Boya, all the institutions
But
will be
yeah,
in place.
but
That's how
yeah,
you find
I
in the
so
history say that the first elections democratically organized was in Southern Cameroon in
mm-hmm.
1957.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we got
Barrister,
now.
why I'm stopping you in between the time is because there are some fundamental things that you are saying that are getting missing in this whole historical setup. For example, I am still trying to reason out that you said that the first secondary school was in southern Cameroons and not in Nigeria. I don't know whether I got you well.
Now, what I said was this: you see, the UK had divided us, that is the trust territory that was handed to them, into two.
Yeah,
Their intention was that eventually we will all merge into Nigeria. What we
right,
call the Southern Cameroons was just part of the UK administered British Cameroons.
right,
And so once that division was made, we evolved henceforth, 1947, 46, going forward differently.
okay,
British Southern Cameroons, where we are today, Ambazonia, was evolving educationally by magnitude that could not be found in most territories in Africa or third world at the time. While the
okay,
Northern Cameroon was left to decay between 1947, that the British effectively started administering the territory, and 1951 and 53, that they withdrew from Enugu. The British Southern Cameroon had already almost matured educationally.
okay,
What examples was that in 1948, just a year after that, after 1947, they set up a college in Boya, Sase. For those who hear the name
mm-hmm.
Sase, Sase was the University of London. This was a secondary school. If there was a secondary school, there were many primary schools. Whereas in the north, the part that was left to the north, there was nothing there. Until 1961, they only had 4 primary schools in the whole region. While by 1961, going fast forward, we already had Sase. We had Okoyom up in 1956. We had ballet. So we had a pool of Sunday schools already. We had the educated class. We had already produced doctors. Dr. Underwood was already a medical doctor. He's not a doctor by fiction. He was already a medical doctor. The Chimoketes had gone to universities. I think Chimokete, he was even in Lagos as a government minister. This was before 1961. So we produced this corps that could rival, that could challenge Nigeria with their own educational setup. The Ebola, the Azikiwe, they were not more better educated than our own people. They were not. And I said the Funchas had gone to St. Charles. There was no teacher training in Southern Cameroon that could train go to teachers. But they could go abroad to St. Charles in Nigeria. The Munas had gone to London to train as senior teachers. They had opened GTTC, Government Teacher Training College, Kumba. So we had a pool of educational institutions. In addition to that, all of us know we had already opened Ombe. That was the first technical college. I'm not sure there was anyone like that in East Cameroon. So that is what I said. I didn't say that word. I was comparing our educational setup in preparation for independence with the educational setup of Northern Cameroon. That was
Northern
supposed to be
Cameroons.
one of them.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. All right.
I
Okay.
think
You are
yes,
comparing it with Northern Cameroons. All right.
yes.
Okay. Good. All right. So let's get this just 30 seconds boot of music, and then we'll be right back to continue from where you have just stopped.
You know me, you know my name. You know my name already. I can see your hand in my life. Lord, I see your love upon me.
That's not correct. The kind of music that is singing there now is not what we want. All right. So, Barrister, let's go ahead. 1953, when they came back and there was this advancement in schools, like 1948, SASE started. Wow, I didn't know that. And it continued till where we are today. So before we got into 1960, the method of how to make a choice of who is to be what in which department was already laid down. That was what prompted the British now, even though they were shocked with our pulling out from Nigeria, but when we now established and we were going, and we were going, and we were going. Now tell us, after the elections that came in 1956, now did they count the term of Endele to end in 1959, including the 2 terms that he had led the country without elections?
No, there were not terms as such. Let me rephrase it again. I've said that the Southern Cameroonians who were in Unugu withdrew in 1953 to Boya in 1954 and started forming a government. The people were in Enugu, including people like Samson George, Endele, Foncha. There were just 13 of them. So they constituted the first assembly of Southern Cameroon. There were just 13. But it was not formal. I said every decision that was to be taken had to go back to London. But London realized that they could not just do things without consulting these people. So in 1957, they organized a conference in London. They called it the London Conference, in which the Endeles, the Southern Cameroonian politicians at the time, participated. And they said, what are we going to do? Now you want to say, oh, on state, 13 MPs withdrawing from there, that's not enough. But fast forward, in London, it was agreed that the number of MPs will not just be 13 people. It will rise from 13 to 26. Now they double
Okay.
it. They
Okay.
agreed further in London that we will not just have a parliament, we will also have a House of Chiefs. That explains the evolution of the House of Chiefs. And the British now came out with an order expanding the House before the 1957 elections. You're not just going to elect 13 people, you're going to elect 26. That will not be all, there will be House of Chiefs. And so the London Conference of 1957 is absolutely important because it laid down this foundation. I don't want to, I just give the idea of education in passing because this is not an
Yeah.
educational discussion.
Discourse.
We're
Yeah.
dealing with the
But
timeline
that
and
was
the
very
evolution.
important.
Yeah. So the Sase, the Bale, the Okoyam were just to remind us that we're ready educationally to occupy any positions that could be occupied anywhere in the world. Because we're better than Indonesia. We're better than many countries that got independence in the 1960s. So the British now, after the London Conference, because everything was done under the British, because they are still the administrators, we didn't have the power, the
Right.
functional government, the indirect government, they didn't have the power to do anything. So they now started this thing. That's how the expansion started. I'm dealing with the transition, and I'm trying to tarry it with what we have actually now in our constitution.
Yeah.
We will get to Boya, for example. If we were to get to Boya today and we have 3 years to go, we have, for example, an, a House of Parliament of 63, 61 members in principle, gotten by the principle of every LGA will produce one. Is that what will apply within those 3 years? I doubt very much. Because Parliament is a representative of the people by population.
Yeah.
What we call the 61 LGAs, some 61 LGAs like Dabato and
LGS.
some Indian. Indian is the largest one with the LGAs. Some of the LGAs are not even up to your family and your children. But in terms of LGA, Debato is the same thing like Mancon 1. Like Mancon. Debato is same thing like Boya. So Boya, whose population is almost more than the population of whole India. So, but we'll get back to Boya. Within that transition, we will then find out the fine print. Shall we continue to have 61? If we must have 61, what should they represent? Should they represent LGAs or they represent some figure of population? A number. Say, for example, an MP represents 100,000 people or 50,000 people or things like that. So that is the work of the transition. But our discussion for today is a timeline. And that's why I'm just putting this to explain the reasons for some of the timeline that we had. Thank you.
Thank you very much again. Again. Um, what I want to ask now is with the event, I'm really jumping ahead. With the event, before we get into what happened in the 60s, but with what is going on now, like what just happened on the 7th of December, when the president signed into law a bill that was passed by the General Assembly asking the change of certain institutions, especially the name that we used to call interim government. And then we now, on the 7th, got it officially come in to be signed as government of the Southern Cameroons. And you have just explained here that when our people left Enugu, and they gave them, there was, I don't know who gave them, but they took 3 years to actually organize and had elections come up. What is happening now in our system? Is this something that you who are ahead, you sat down and went to revise it and then come up with it because it worked, or it was just I don't know how it came about that we are going back to what actually had happened, calling it history repeating itself? I don't know whether you get me clear.
I get you. And let me say it from this perspective. You say, we have been singing this song that this revolution is God ordained.
Right.
And I think there are points to that. I'm not sure, I'm sure I'd never had this explanation to give to President Sako or to anybody. And I doubt very strongly if any of them, or any of us have read this book. But how are we
Mm.
coming back to it? Unconsciously, we're coming back to these events, repeating what happened in 1954, what happened in
Mhm.
1957. In 1954, there were only 13 parliamentarians.
Mhm.
1950, at the former government under Frontier, under Indele. 2 years into that, until they met in London, I said, look, no, that's not enough. That's not enough. Let us change this thing to the six representatives. No longer just 13 of you. Let us change this thing. So we'll revisit history because history is our guide. And history does not lie. Facts remain facts. So what's happening now? What happened just last week by changing names to assume exactly what we were back in the 50s and 60s and the early 60s. It's nothing new. We are being guided by God. That's why I've brought in this. I don't know where you, as a pastor, you have seen this through the lenses of religion, but
Mhm.
God is the guardian of this revolution. And so
Thank you very much.
our parents, grandparents were deceived. They attempted to deceive them. They attempted to derail them and successfully did to some of them. Some of them died. But the revolution retraces itself because facts don't lie. Facts remain facts. God remains the guide and say, you are going the wrong path. Go back and retrace your road. That is the only way I can explain. Because when we were making this thing, most of these amendments in the Constitution, I took part in drafting them. But I never really, by the time I was writing those things, I didn't look at this book. I had a copy of it here. This is my own copy. I didn't look at it. But how did I get back to it? It is not until yesterday that you told me, oh, this discussion timeline. And then I went back and said, but we have this document here, which I've been keeping here. I have so many books about it. I have like not less than 50 books on Southern Cameroon. So to answer your question, you see, what happened last 2 weeks or last week, trying to redraw the line. It's not new. We are being guided by the Lord. I doubt,
Amen.
again, I don't know whether President Sako has ever read these books. But if he didn't read these books, then how did it come to his mind?
Yeah.
If you did not read these books, how did it come to your mind that you were just supporting what they're doing? And many others who just supported. God must be speaking to us through some means that you're on the right path. Falter shall it be, yeah, you will falter on the way. But retracing your roots and doing the right, taking the right course is the answer to when you falter. That's how religion is. Those who believe in religion, that's how God guides people. You will miss your way, but you will come back to retrace your track. That's all I can explain about that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barrister. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are in here for our Amba history, and you are getting it very, very clear from the barrister that he is as shocked and surprised as many of you out there are. And he has given me an assignment, and this assignment, I'm definitely going to find out from the president if he read this book, because it is line upon line, and which he has confirmed, and I am very, very sure that this is God directing, because something that has succeeded before and worked, when God sees that that is the pathway to follow, there is no need going to try new methods when the old way and the old method had worked. And people who think that it is advancement it is technology, it is what they call, in quotes, politics, because as I've said, God is the author of politics. Because when he created man, he said, have dominion over all. So, dominion means politics. It didn't mean to kill somebody or tell lies, break down somebody's house or condemn the person's materials and then take the materials and still go build your own house. That is not politics. That is tricks. That is scamming. And I believe with the barrister that President Sako actually must have had an intuition. That means God telling him what is in this book to implement it, and we will go ahead. But as I promised, I'm going to find out if he ever had a copy of that book and saw the success of what is going on. Now, let's move on. Thank you very much for that revelation. The people of Amazonia should really understand that when we say that this is God ordained, we definitely mean it is God ordained. Now, if you do not know, some people think that it is only when you enter the church that you can know that is God ordained. But let me refer you back to the Bible. If you read Romans chapter 2, it will tell you that our parents, our people who did not know God, the way you claim that you know God today by reading Bible, God inspired them and they did things like what our president is doing now, touching the government of the Federal Republic of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Now, Barrister, I want to ask you, and be sincere with us. I know that you are a man who will not just claim that you endeavor to speak the truth, because you speak the truth, and you are not all knowing, like some fellows claim. I don't want to call their names. I want to find out from you what happened that we, the Ambazonians, got caught up in the name interim government for all these years without going back to look at what we are seeing today. What kept us under that bondage or under that cover of interim government?
Now, I've always said this: a revolution is a very fast-moving train.
Mhm.
And for those who are professional critics, those who say, "Oh, that guy," may I mention Mr. Summers Thomas? Oh, those lawyers. He criticizes lawyers without ever knowing the first line of a law school. But that is not the issue now. The issue now is this. For those who want to criticize, I've shown this document. It was not proposed, it was not prepared for the purposes of this discussion. It was not prepared, even it was prepared in 2011, 6 years before 2016 started. And something intriguing features there. Page 2 of this book, write something there, which I want to say. Produce Southern Cameroon, if you permit to read, Southern Cameroon Restoration Government in exile. Restoration Government in exile. It was produced by concerned Southern Cameroonians. Among them, I've given you the names before. And so it was not prepared by the ambassador to come here and sell a course. Now, again, those who have this book may be very few, but I'm sure Professor Yang will have a copy of it. He wrote the foreword to this document. And so
Wait, Barrister,
people,
sorry. Let me
let me
cut
answer
this.
let me answer your question.
Okay,
Okay.
because there's something you have just said there concerning the book, that it was written 6 years before we actually came out. And you are saying something about the book written in Southern Cameroon's government in exile.
Yes.
Yeah,
We
this is
contemplated.
revealing.
We contemplated. See written here.
Yeah,
We contemplated 5 years before 2018, 2016.
wow,
That
wow.
something will happen. We were not soothsayers. We were not pastors. We
I
saw
like that.
in this revolution. We saw in this revolution after uh, Communication 266 that was
Uh-huh.
published in 2009, telling the Republic to go and negotiate with complainants. Complainants were Amazonians, led by Scapo and SCNC. A year after that, they did not do it. They were given 180 days to do it. They never did it. So what produced this document had in mind? Something might happen. We didn't know what would happen, but something might happen. And it happened.
Wow. Wow.
So, back to your question. What got us stuck with the name interim? No, we didn't get stuck there. If you remember, this is 2017. It's not even up to 5 years. Again, if you see the changes that have occurred from when the Republic banned SCNC, they banned the consortium, and the people fled to different parts of the world, including Nigeria. From 2017, so many things have happened. Some within months, others within a year. The transformation of the resolution of the consortium to SCACOF, it didn't last for up to a year. The governing
Mm-hmm.
council, it didn't last up to a
Mm-hmm.
year.
Mm-hmm.
To interim government, it didn't last up to a year. So each time people are faltering, they are reforming themselves, changing appellations to reflect what was good at the time, and progressively going back to redo it. So I think the idea of G, yes, was not the first, it was progress to the final thing. And may I remind our listeners in general and our critics in particular, and most particularly the Summer Thomases. Go read the history. Don't just be a critic. Document it. Don't say you went to spy on whether Mr. Ambassador Fosun has set up a case in England where he would have contributed money, but you discovered that he was scammers. Yes, that is not important. Ambassador Fosun, according to you, was acting as the chairman of SCNC,
Yes.
which according to you, he had been dismissed. But the
Mm-hmm.
SCNC did not die. The SCNC survived. Whatever quarrel Ambassador Fosun, the Lumas and the rest had, they survived. And they continue to need money. You did not contribute a dime. Going forward, Mfangala went to every prison in Cameroon there. They needed lawyers to get him out. Sama did not contribute a dime. Mfangala went abroad on different missions. They spent a lot of money. Yes, he didn't pay money because Fosun was a scammer. Sama did not contribute to any of the journeys financially led by Mfangala abroad. I used to say, we evolve a lot. God is our guidance. The
Mm.
SCNC that Sama wants to talk about, I'm not sure that he was in Boy in 1993, April 2nd and 3rd. He was not even there. But even if he were there, then he missed the whole point. The SCNC adopted its own principles. The argument of force, not the force of argument. In other words, they were committed to preach the history, to teach the history, and thought by people getting to know the history, we were going to be liberated. Did they succeed? Of course, they succeeded. The Agwambalas, the Fontaines, when they took off in 2016, it was not because they just landed from heaven. They had been listening to the history by the SCNC. It has spurred them. Most of the guys who are fighting today were not born in 1993, 94, when the SCNC started. But they learned something from the SCNC. The SCNC never took up arms. They took up, the only weapon was preaching the history, telling the truth of our cause. And they successfully did that. And so, don't just be a critic for the sake of criticizing. Be constructive. If you want to criticize something, give the alternative. Like again, poor Sama, you say, well, we don't even know what law school, these guys went to court, referring to me in particular. And Mr. Well, you don't need to know because you never qualified to go. If I told you what law school I went to, you have no idea. Do something that you can do it the best where you are, what you are capable of doing. You are not capable of vetting lawyers. That's not your domain. And so let us be good, not be just good at criticizing, let us be good at suggesting something in the alternative, something meaningful. Don't just dislike Johnson because you come from one local government with him. Of course, he wrote law. Maybe he wrote some law, which he never did anyone. So criticize him for something that he can replace. If Mr. Johnson is not there, according to you, is a bad lawyer. Where is your own lawyer? Produce a better one. Produce a better lawyer than him. If you don't have one, that's the best we have now, and we have to use them. So let us not be critics for the sake of criticizing. Let us be critics for the sake of building. Again, a revolution is a moving train, as I said from the beginning. We'll have to falter as we move on. But the most important thing is not that we falter. The most important thing is that we'll correct ourselves as we move on. And that's what is important. Don't fall for the
Wow.
semantics. Fall for the substance. It's not because somebody up a foreign office in Washington, D.C., in London, in Paris, that you just fall for it. No, that's not how it works. Analyze what it means. Show us what it can do. And if you're right, people will support you. You are not right just because you support somebody. You are right because the ideas the person stands for are defendable. They are workable. If
Wow.
you want to
Thank you
play
so
activist,
much.
you want to play activist, play activist. Activists are not experts. They are freelancers. Activists are freelancers. People who can say anything they want. Freelancing is not a skill to be used, technical skill to be used in anything. In anything.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Every time I look around, now you are the sea. Every time I turn around, now you are the below. I'm a father, you know my name. Papa, you know me. Yeah. Yelele, 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 yelele. Yelele, 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 yelele. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. After that musical pause, we will get over to Barrister to be giving us his concluding words for this first segment. And I think we will need to explore that book because the revelation has been made, and our president is already talking some of the things that are written in the book, which brought success. And I also want to say to Barrister very, very succinctly that the idea of them writing and talking about the government in exile before it happened, it was not a coincidence, it was a Godcidence. And Godcidence simply means that since Ambazonians have handed over to God, God took over and began doing what Ambazonians were contemplating doing to help their people come out of this mess that they are in. And so they joined the force of argument and the argument of force together with what is presently going on. Barrister, it has been a pleasure for the Ambazonian people having you here. Our time is up, and I would definitely want to suggest that you don't close the chapter. Please come back. I will start from this 1959 and then go a little bit ahead and entered into where we are today, repeating the history. So I would like you to just tell the people of Ambazonia, particularly, and the rest of the people of the world who are listening, how that Ambazonia is not a nation that is breaking away. It was never one nation with La Republic of Cameroon, with all the lies that they are telling people around the place, and that it was a nation of its own. It started running its institutions before they got into what they call independence. That's another topic for another day. But for now, go ahead and give us a summary of what you have for the people who are listening today. Over to you, sir.
Yes, this is the summary. You see, I've read so much on this document here, which deals with timeline. It ends with 2009 and says, the end. 2009, African Commission on Human Rights, Human and People's Rights, issued a ruling, 26623. That's the last timeline. When we produced this document, it was not on sale. It was not being sold for money. I still have my own copy. I don't know where we can find copies anywhere. But if there's anybody with the technology who can help us produce this document, just 51 pages, scan it, no, it's 54 pages, scan it with all the pictures there, duplicate it, so that we can be well educated. Those who want to read can read. It will be useful. If there's somebody who has that technology to do that, I will gladly send this copy to him or to her. And they
Yeah,
do
I
it for
think,
all of us.
Barrister, definitely we are finding out somebody, and I will join you to find out somebody there in the States, and then you will send the book to the person and you will do it very properly for us, because I'm one of the person that want to read it all through, and we make our people want to know our history to go through. uh, God writing the history before it happens. Go ahead with your summary. I'm sorry to have cut in. I'm so excited.
And so, thank you for having me once more for this. Almost this probably lasts for the month. And I said all the time, we try to give facts as we know them.
Yeah.
We stand to be corrected if we are wrong.
Mhm.
But our goal is simply one: move forward with the revolution. And as we move
Amen.
forward, we correct the errors. We must falter as human beings. We must falter as human institutions. Faltering is not a crime. Inability to correct yourself when you fall is a crime.
Right.
So as we move on, and we have moved on, we have faltered. The most important thing is we are trying to correct where we go wrong, reinforce where we are right, strengthen what is right, and then move on with the revolution. Support something if you see something good there. Not just good because you like it. I always conclude my own discussion. Hate my face if you don't like me, but don't hate my ideas until you have the better alternative. You
Right.
know, I'm not I'm not fighting for love, for somebody to come and marry me, or someone want to marry me, or somebody to employ me and give me an executive job. No. If you don't like me, so be it. But if you don't like you cannot replace me. If you don't like my ideas, have yours. Produce them publicly as I've done. I will we'll debate. Don't be a critic for the sake of
Yes.
criticism.
Mhm.
Be a critic for the purpose of putting something better up. If you can all criticize without having the alternative, you're wasting your time.
Yeah. That's true.
What we will call a bootlicker. Don't be my bootlicker. Be my full supporter with your own views. Be my full critic with the alternative to what I provide. Thank you once more for having me. I hope the new year is going to move well. The Christmas is going to move
Y-
well. Next year,
Yeah.
2024, will bring us closest to the end of this debacle. Be perseverant,
Okay.
be conscious,
Before
persevere, we will
you
succeed.
before you take off, I just want to read some few comments here from a few people. Say, Barrister Tim, my mentor. I may not call his name. He says Spartan, but you are his mentor. And then some other person write, I so much love my Amba fathers. God bless you all. not forgetting my able moms. And the another person says the president behaves as if he reads lots of books, so that something that is not even public out there, like what you are talking about, he's talking as if he has read it. I want to say that this is what we call inspiration. And when you are standing in good standing with God, He does it. Another person writes, I was thinking the same thing yesterday. I don't know what thing he was thinking yesterday. Pa Barrister, Tim, you are my mentor. You are my mentor too. Okay, he has read what the other person has written. I say, God bless you for standing with your people to free them. Uh, Barrister Tim loves sticking to facts. That's why I like him. Another person says, may you live long to lead and guide us to Boya. You must see Boya in the name of Jesus Christ. I say amen to that. Another person says, what book is this, please, so that some of us can buy it? Well, Barrister has just said that the book is not, he doesn't know, the book is not in the market. They were the history that they were writing down, and God told them that they should write something about a government in exile. So he said they are not seers, they are not soothsayers, and they are not prophets and pastors. But I want to say that God uses everybody who is disposed, and the heart of that individual is open to what God wants to take place. Then another person say, correctly said, Barrister, let our people understand what you have said. That's why I say that Barrister will be coming back, because our people need to understand what Barrister is saying. Another person says, we'll need to read this book, and also we'll keep it in our libraries. It says wise words, wow, wisdom. Other people, shows this show need to be rebroadcast. It's full of knowledge. Well, watching with you, Pastor Commando and Barrister Tim, who is that? Okay, perform back. It says watching you. It just says perform back. Thank you, Barrister Team, for your consistency in educating our people. Well, the comments are still going on. I want to stop there and tell the Ambazonian people that we really, really appreciate your this history, so that nobody should deceive you tomorrow. And Barrister has made a statement that we can make mistakes, we can falter as human beings, but if your criticism is not bringing us something that is replacing and really talking what is needed at that particular moment, you are just wasting your time. Because this government, we are not perfectionists, but we are marching ahead with the leadership that God has given to us. Ambassador Tim, I want to doff my cap once again for you for accepting to come in and talk about this, our illustrious history. And we would want to continue. I know festivals are coming, and I called one of your colleagues, and he was saying, where, Pastor? When I not going to leave you, will rest. I said, no, as long as you are breathing, we're not going to leave you, will rest. Because knowledge is what has destroyed a lot of people, as it is written. The lack of knowledge, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And so we need this knowledge from people like you, who are not just talking theory. You have lived through it, and you wrote some things that are actually happening now. So if you take yourself out of the place of a prophet or a seer or a whatever, I may not fully agree with you. But for now, thank you so much once again. And our people, God bless you, and see you next when Barrister Team comes on board with us. Barrister, thank you.
Thank you too, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.